Today, from the guys who do math, the atom. Thousands of years ago, people thought that the smallest thing in the world was a mustard seed, which, as you can see, is pretty small. But then someone realized that there was something smaller, a grain of sand. This someone was an ancient Greek philosopher known as Democritus. Democritus started to wonder what happened if you took the smallest thing we know and cut it in half. You would then have two things smaller than the smallest thing. To use an example, take a look at this block. If this block was the smallest thing we know, and we then cut it in half, we would then have two smaller pieces. And if we cut those in half, we would then have smaller pieces than that. And if we cut those in half, and those in half, and we just kept cutting in half, we would always have more and smaller pieces. Democritus then asked the question, how small could you go? This is when Democritus suggested the idea of an atom. An atom would be the smallest possible building block that cannot be cut into any smaller pieces and would make up everything in the world. As we've made advances in technology, we've been able to zoom in more and more to try and see what this atom looks like. This is the world's first photograph of an atom. It's a hydrogen atom and looks exactly the way scientists predicted it would. To understand the photograph of the hydrogen atom better, we're now going to see what an atom is made up of. A hydrogen atom has one proton in the center, or the nucleus of the atom. The red dot shows the electron, which orbits the proton much like the moon orbits the Earth. The electron orbits the nucleus so fast, in fact, that it looks like a blur in the photo. Protons have a positive charge, and electrons have a negative charge. Now, an atom can have a different number of protons and electrons. We name all the atoms with the same number of protons an element. For example, all the atoms in the universe with one proton and one electron are called hydrogen atoms. All the atoms with two protons and two electrons are called helium. All those with three are called lithium. All those with four called beryllium. Each type of atom is called an element and is listed in the periodic table of the elements. There is a third particle in atoms. This is called the neutron, which has a neutral charge or no charge. The purpose of the neutron is to hold the atom together. This becomes important as the atoms get bigger and more complicated. If we look at this picture of a lithium atom, we can see that it has 3 protons, 3 electrons, and to hold it all together, 4 neutrons. Here is the periodic table. Every block is an element, and each block has a different number of protons and electrons. In the first block, with 1 proton and 1 electron, we have hydrogen. In the 8th block, with 8 electrons and 8 protons, we have oxygen. Mixtures and compounds. What happens when we begin to mix these elements together? Just like when we mix primary colors and we get some interesting new secondary colors, when we mix atoms together, we get interesting new compounds or molecules. Here are 2 common compounds. Remember that these circles represent the atoms inside. The first one is H2O, or as it is commonly known, water. The second is common in air and is called carbon dioxide. Here is the carbon dioxide compound again. The way we write this is CO2. The C stands for carbon, the O stands for oxygen, and because there are 2 oxygen atoms, we write a subscript 2 under the oxygen symbol. Here we have 2 alcohol molecules. The grey atoms are carbon, the red atoms are oxygen, and the blue atoms are hydrogen. This is a penicillin molecule used in medicine to cure infections. These molecules are dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, and they all stem from your brain to help determine your moods. There are many, many more elements and molecules out there, and most of them we haven't even found yet. Even as recent as early this year, a new element was discovered in Switzerland. This is just an introduction to the wonderful world of quantum physics. For more info on any of these topics and many more, come to the Scienza Center at the University of Pretoria.